tuned to a very special presentation of the program Cafe Cabaret. Hi, I'm the Wrong Hero, and I thought that as the century and indeed the millennium wind down to a close, I would help the helpless Earthmen by giving them a kind of a retrospective on the events of at least this last century. With that in mind, I hereby present my mockumentary. Hi folks. Sure do hope I didn't frighten the kiddies with that controversial opening segment, but nevertheless, whether I did or not, here I am, the Wrong Hero, speaking uncharacteristically softly because of the importance of the topic which we are about to explore. The 20th century in America was a century of many ups and downs, ins and outs, bewildering profusion of new technologies, vying with a bewildering profusion of new ways in which to communicate the news of these technologies meant that the average man was bombarded by information seemingly 24 hours a day. As the Wrong Hero, it is my job to attempt to discuss everything about the 20th century, which happens to be on the two documentary films that I borrowed from the library, which I won't give you the names of because I'm afraid they might find out and sue me, and if they do, it'll be your fault because you squealed on me. You know, you're the squealing rats around here, don't you? All right, boys, fetch the red hot branding iron. This is the Wrong Hero. Some men call me Shaman of Class Animus. Some men call me Cracker Barrel Philosopher for the Bourgeoisie. But I prefer to be known as the Avatar of the Moron Zeitgeist. Gee, how does this thing here work anyway? America the Beautiful. Even in still frame, even as we click it forward one little frame at a time, America is a beautiful land. Hi, I'm the Wrong Hero, and this is my mockumentary on the 20th century in the United States of America. You will, of course, observe utmost patience as we creep forward frame by frame. But wait a minute. In the 20th century, with the arrival of postmodernism, things began speeding up a bit. Perhaps more than most people would like. This is America, from the dusty plains to the big city, and people holding babies and waving American flags and carrying their luggage onto Ellis Island and the Statue of Liberty, holding her torch like a gigantic beacon and all that other nonsense, and driving through giant trees and smiling immigrants. And, well, for example, between 1880 and 1890, the population of Boston increased from 362,839 to 448,477. But you needn't quote me on that. Yes, newsreels were America's biggest business. In fact, a great many people got most of what they knew about the news from the newsreel, and it can be traced back to one man, deaf old Thomas Edison, who invented motion pictures. Some of the first motion pictures included people dancing, a man sneezing, and a horse racing, and of course the surrender of the Japanese to Commodore Dewey. Marian Anderson, the burning of the dirigible. I'm getting a little confused here. We seem to be fast forwarding at a pace which Henry Ford, automation, FDR, Harry Truman, the Coconut Grove fire, Babe Ruth, the house that Ruth built, and headline stories of the century, a newsreel library of women and men in the news, 1901, President Theodore Roosevelt. Yes, President Nobody died and went off to Happy Land, and it became Vice President Theodore Roosevelt's sad duty to assume the mantle of the most mighty man in the world. Of course, that mantle also became an imperial mantle, because once McKinley and his war in Cuba against Spain and the Philippines was over, there was FDR, a hero of that very same war. I'm sorry, Teddy Roosevelt, a hero of that very same war. Whoops, I guess I'm not going fast enough. Here we go. the Wright brothers. Funny, when we look at jets today, we don't realize that as recently as 1903, unmanned, heavier-than-air flight didn't seem possible. But, of course, the Wright brothers proved all the naysayers and gloomy gusses wrong when, as a matter of fact, they were the first to perfect aerial flight with a heavier-than-air machine. Although what the distinction between heavier-than-air and lighter-than-air machine is, I don't know. But I suppose if they had failed in their mission, they would have been known as the Wrong brothers. And now, Henry Ford, that famous and notorious anti-Semite, and his production line. Yes, Henry Ford was the first to turn man into machinery in the interests of creating vaster and greater machines. And as we can see here, Henry Ford was no slouch when it came to making men give their all and work until the sweat beads popped out of their faces and the perspiration ran down the sides until, as a matter of fact, they became so dehydrated that they couldn't even think straight and began to faint on the factory floor. D.W. Griffith, pioneer filmmaker. Boy, am I getting thirsty. I'll just let you look at some of these clips here while I go get a drink of water. How do you like that? Hi, I'm the Wrong Hero. Welcome to my mockumentary of the American century. And truly, it was the American century. If the deeds of filmmakers like D.W. Griffith are any indication, of course, Pancho Villa attacked the United States. Some say that Ambrose Bierce fell in with Pancho Villa. Basically, it all boils down to this. A rebellion against the dictator Diaz in 1910 ended with the democratic Mexican Constitution in 1917. However, in the interim, Pancho Villa led raids against the United States border. As a matter of fact, from March 1916 to January 1917. And then, in 1917, once the Mexicans had been pacified, the United States entered the World War against Germany. There really should be no neutrals in a conflict like this, said an American serving in the French Foreign Legion in October of 1915. Of course, we all remember the good tiny tune, When the Kaiser Does the Goose Step to a Good Old American Flag, with the lyric by Jack Frost and the music by Harold Neander, which of course is short for Neanderthal. World War I and social change. Yes, there was quite a bit of social change. First of all, the black migration began from the counties of Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia, up to such ports as Cleveland, New York, Detroit, and Chicago, as well as Los Angeles and San Francisco. In any event, there were a great many social changes. Women, for the first time perhaps in human memory, managed to get out of the house and into the factory so they could become robot slaves just like their men. But then World War I ended and everything returned to what Warren G. Harding, perhaps the worst president we've ever had since Bill Clinton, referred to as normalcy. But at least Bill Clinton knows how to use the word normality when he means normalcy or vice versa. In any event, you can see from that flickering of the film that it's actually quite old and antique and very precious, irreparably valuable footage. And women get the vote. Yeah, 1920. Now women can be free to die of the same diseases that men get and be prone to the same vices and habituations and they can capitulate to the same overwhelming social forces that have driven men since time immemorial. And that is essentially the wrap on women's suffrage, at least the contemporaries of the people who were against women's suffrage, which seems like such a remote era, and yet I must remind you that it was only 76 years ago that women even had the vote, and only 72 years ago that American Indians had it. Well, of course, women had been elected to Congress prior to 1920 because, of course, federal laws and state laws were two entirely different things back before FDR took over and made everything into federalism. Well, the Roaring Twenties, flappers, people shaking their booties, yeah, jungle music and all the rest. Of course, that was a mere prelude. America had its party in the 1920s, what with the beneficent President Harding and the silent President Coolidge, and eventually this led I might add, to the somewhat stolid President Hoover, a succession of Republican presidents who presided over America's indebtedness until an inevitable recession arose and a great many people were thrown out of work due to economic dislocation, and sort of reminds you of the 1980s when equally complacent Presidents Reagan and Bush presided over the eventual dissolution of financial stability, which began in 1973, but I'm getting way ahead of myself. Here he is, President Coolidge, fishing, stroking cattle, playing with pup dogs, admiring an owl, more fishing, having his photograph taken in front of a farm. Boy, that guy's all over the place, isn't he? He's in the Navy. He's a photographer. And Billy Mitchell. Well, obviously, this is like an incredibly important American event here, although I can find no reference to it whatsoever in my Penguin Historical Atlas of North America. They seem to skip right over that one. But then again, you have to be selective, and so I've got to come up with some sort of bosh because I have no real idea what the Billy Mitchell court-martial was about unless it was victory through air power. But the Scopes monkey trial. There's a subject on which I am an expert, thanks to my close reading of the book Only Yesterday by Frederick Lewis Allen, as well as Mark Sullivan's In Our Times, which has recently, I'm sorry, it's called Our Times. It's recently been reissued, as a matter of fact, in an abridged form, instead of the bulky several volumes. 6 volumes, as a matter of fact. Yes, 1926, The Invention of Television. If you read the book, The Box, then you would probably have a more clear idea of what exactly the invention of television entailed. It was, of course, a mechanical process rather than an electronic one, which, of course, was eventually discarded in favor of the far more effective and now conventional electronic process. And to think that Great Britain beat us to the punch, and now it's Edison and his phonograph, which changed the face of popular music for good. Prior to that, of course, there were wax cylinders, but now you could play lacquered records with micro grooves, and they were more easy to handle, even though they spun at 78 revolutions per minute, and were, of course, incredibly bulky and prone to gather dust, and the needles inevitably marred the surface of the records to the degree that the records became impossibly scratchy and difficult to listen to. But of course that very scratching, and popping made the record sound more antique, and some people even build that sound into their recordings. And now the first newsreel, in a documentary about newsreels, with newsreels shown as the subject matter of the documentary, of course the invention of the first newsreel in 1927 would be, as a matter of fact, the most important thing, the eyes and ears of the world, as they self-style themselves, and that gets a whole minute or so. Lindbergh takes off on his epic flight. That's right, Lucky Lindy up in the sky, and he resented being referred to as Lucky Lindy because the luck had nothing to do with it, see? So he was upset, and he didn't like that very much. Hi, I'm the wrong hero. You are tuned to Cafe Cabaret, by the way, and we are doing this mockumentary, and I suppose at this point I should probably stop my incessant chattering and attempt to say something intelligent and coherent. Yes, I guess it was Lindbergh 1, World 0. While the earth snored, Lindy flew across the Atlantic all by his lonesome, and in his triumph was greeted jubilantly by the assembled masses gathered in Paris and eventually in New York. Well, that's right. What a guy, I'll tell you. He was like a movie star. In fact, everything he did was just like the movies, only better because it was real. And he didn't need to look bigger than he already was because he was a big man. That's right. Because he was able to hold his water, or at least piss in a little discreet jar while he flew across the Atlantic, everybody thought he was an Iron Man. Ah, yes. Those filthy anarchists, Sacco and Vanzetti. Who cares if they were guilty? Because you are guilty of eating spaghetti, we hereby decree death to Sacco and Vanzetti, as my little poetic couplet of the late 70s so eloquently put it. Yes, it had nothing to do with the fact that they had or had not set the bomb. It had everything to do with the fact that they were immigrants and to be loathed. Ah, there we go. President Coolidge steps down, and here comes President Hoover. Yep, Mr. Hoover. He hoovered up the American economy. Now, I guess you can't really blame him. Don't pick on President Hoover. He liked dogs, and there they are, the two Republicans. Boy, I'll tell you, they sure know how to make men back then. They broke the mold when they made those two huskies. Yes, Al Smith, poor Al Smith. To think, he was only 40 years ahead of his time. Had he but run in 1968, when he was at the incredibly fit age of 110 years old, then, or he would have been if he had still been alive, then perhaps he would have gotten somewhere, being a Catholic and all. But Al Smith, who in the hell wants a president with the name of Smith anyway? That's something they never discuss. Sounds like an alias. President X, President alias, President a.k.a, baby boy president, and the Empire State Building, obviously the tallest building in the world with its penile projecting shaft atop it. That's obviously like a really historical moment, one well worthy. Oh, and we get to see an equally cigar-shaped and penile zeppelin or dirigible being moored at that penile tower. And that's like, two dicks bumping together. Oh, now we have the stock market crash. From two dicks bumping together to the American economy falling down a bottomless pit, a sewer-like rat hole, from whence no light is emitted and from whence nothing emerges. What a tragedy. Now let's see, are we doing this fast enough? I should hope so. Let's see, we can get them to speak like Alvin Chipmunk, I think. Yep, that's fast, all right. That's 2 times the speed that normally we'd be able to see this. And as you can see, pictures of Al Capone hiding his face. In fact, as a matter of fact, this whole thing is nothing but an excuse to get rid of all the old stock newsreel footage that I have in my library. The Lindbergh baby's kidnapped. Though that's a big event because, after all, if he had just been any old kid, then nobody would have given 2 hoots. But because he's Lucky Lindy's kid, I guess Lucky Lindy's not so lucky these days, eh? But some say that his sister did it by accident. She accidentally killed the boy and then hit him. But then how does that explain all the circumstantial clues pointing to Bruno Hauptmann? Yes, that might have helped us get into World War II. Here comes FDR. Well, it's back to the Roaring '20s, even though everybody's too poor to go out to fancy nightclubs and drink bootleg liquor. Man, who in the hell is that cat? That's Will Rogers, isn't it? The beloved Will Rogers, the famous entertainer, who later died in a plane crash. And yeah, he looks kind of well lit, so to speak, and I don't mean lighting either. Yes, our chief executive. Now, is this kinescope of a satisfactory nature to you? I mean, can you make out what is actually? Yeah, I guess it looks okay. I don't know. I mean, I could do better, I suppose, but we wouldn't want to sort of take away from the grainy homemade quality of this low-tech production by actually utilizing dubbing mechanism instead of a kinescope. How do I do this, you wonder? Well, I just get the camera and I tape it straight off the television. How do you like that? I hope I don't get in trouble because of copyright infringement, but since I am in fact subtly altering the image, I am converting it thereby into a work of art. There, that'll keep me out of trouble for a minute. Unemployed, yes. Brother, can you spare a dime? For that matter, brother, can you spare a dame? Hey. Yeah, I was often wondering about Yogi Bear and Cindy Bear. When do they have time to have sex? Little boo-boo's always hanging around, and stupid, officious Ranger Smith is always poking his big nose where it doesn't belong. We have nothing to fear but fear itself. Blind, unreasoning fear. As opposed to the sweetly reasonable kind, I suppose, which is so popular nowadays. mind-inspiring sight. I think one of the reasons I'm so hyper is I'm on this starvation diet, and I've been drinking the same amount of coffee I normally drink, and it sort of tends to make one somewhat more hyper than normal. And here we go. All the factories have shut down. Everything has been stilled. I, your president, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, have this to say. Once we get air pollution going again, that means more jobs will be coming back. Yes, as President Nobody, I'm addicted to symbols. One symbol is the starving but honest working man, standing before a factory which isn't emitting quite as much air pollution as it ought to. That smoke means jobs. Ah, okay, you want smoke? How's about some dust storms, Americans? Ah, yes, and of course, you know, the dust storms, that's very important because in The Wizard of Oz, Kansas is depicted as being in flat black and white, which is, of course, what most people saw when they looked at newsreels because Keller hadn't come in for quite some time. I'm sorry about this, but like The Wizard of Oz, we will be converting to Keller sometime around 1939 or so, I hope, anyway. Well, Technicolor actually came in by about 1934. Disney got a patent on it, as a matter of fact. Well, they got the exclusive rights to it. I missed this. Well, what is this? Building new railways or what? I'm afraid I should have been paying closer attention to what's actually going on here. Da, 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 da. They always have this like busy music. Oh, it's the Hoover Dam, of course. They were dropping like flies in the building of the Hoover Dam until they put air conditioning in their sleeping quarters. Ah, Huey Long, put the jam down on the lower shelf where the little man can get it. Yeah, well, I don't give a jam about your homilies and pontificating, you putrid fool. And geez, Manise, I don't know. There just isn't very much going on these days compared to old Huey Long. The jug-eared Ross Perot is a very poor substitute, and the plump and queasily ingratiating Pat Buchanan. If you somehow could smash Perot and Buchanan together, maybe you'd get a man half as good as Huey Long. Damn it, Dillinger. Yes, Hoover tried to imply, that is J. Edgar, that he somehow had something to do with the capture of Dillinger. But as a matter of fact, wasn't it Melvin Purvis? I think it was. Yes, do you know anything about Dillinger? No, Director. There he is. Mr. Hoover. Ah, yes, dead Dillinger. Dead as a doornail. Dead as vaudeville. Dead as a door... here we go. More beer. Like, we don't have jobs, but at least we can get filthy drunk. Hooray for FDR. Maybe next year we can work on the jobs thing. Of course, breweries are open. People who, bootleggers are out of work, but honest brewers can make their honest brew. Of course, they were kind of out of practice for these some 15 years that they were no longer permitted to ply their trade. Ah, Social Security, yes. Well, we'll just sell the future down the river for the sake of appeasing the past. I'll head Dr. Francis Townsend and his pension plan off at the pass by bribing Americans in a way unique to North America. Of course, the Europeans had these sort of stingy pension plans all along. And as a matter of fact, Bob Dole is a remnant of that legacy, since his name sounds like a stingy British pension plan. The NRA declared unconstitutional. Well, okay, so the Supreme Court puts the kibosh on the executive branch. I suppose that's kind of important. See, that's the problem with you Americans. Most of you don't know your own history, and if you did, you'd probably be just as ignorant about everything else anyway, so what difference would it make, right? He who does not remember the past is condemned to repeat it, which is kind of fun, actually, when you think about it, because then you can sort of jazz it up a little, throw a little cayenne pepper on it. The man who does not remember what happened before he was born remains a child until the day he dies. Well, it sounds pretty snappy. I think Cicero said it. Not Cicero, the Roman orator, but Cicero, Porky Pig's nephew. But what does it mean, really? Who cares about history, right? As our hero, Henry Ford, the notorious anti-Semite, bigot, and world-renowned industrialist said, history is bunk. Of course, you know, bunk, that's a very common word, commonly used in the 1920s. Oh, here we go. Bruno Hauptmann trial. We're still beating that dead horse? It took us 3 years to find him? And found guilty. Well, that ladder and those counterfeit bills, or those marked bills he tried to spend, yep, look, there we go. The mob comes out to see the guy fry. There we go. Okay, that's good. The screaming chimps are standing by as Mr. German Man gets his. He's going to snap, crackle, and pop as his fat sizzles in the hot seat. And me, I don't give a damn. I'm damn glad, as a matter of fact. Wow, we're only up to 1935 and we're halfway through this thing. This is kind of odd. I guess it only goes up to, what, 1970? Boy, they must have really timed this, like, you know, to the minute. If it only goes up to 1970, what are we going to do about the ensuing 25 years that we're going to miss out on? Well, I guess we all know what happened in the last 25 years. I can't imagine anybody younger than 25 is actually taking the time out to watch this. Well, it's possible. Well, you'll have read about it in your history books. Here we go. John L. Lewis, old shaggy brows. Doesn't he look like an ape? Huh? Doesn't he? Huh? Huh? Doesn't he? Okay, good. I'm glad that you're still paying attention. Here we go. 1937, the big floods. Well, I didn't know about this. What's going on here? What big floods? We talking global warming here? Why don't you mix the Dust Bowl and the big floods? Is this from the farmers throwing their milk in the river? Oh, those floods, right. The Mississippi flooded over. Oh, man, I almost forgot about that. Geez, Manise, that's right. Putting sandbags on the levee, when the levee breaks, all those songs. Actually, when the levee breaks, I think was about the 1920 floods. But, yeah, I guess periodically, once every 17 years or so, just like the cicada, the Mississippi overflows its banks. And we see the standard issue pictures of miserable refugees hugging their babies. And here we go, the Hindenburg, the death of the Zeppelin. And, oh boy, this is going to be fun. See, we get these cut away, cut away, cut away, 9-second attention span. When's the big thing going to burn already? There we go. Yeehaw. Oh, the humanity, whatever the hell that means. You mean, in other words, like people are roasting up there. It's a spectacle to you, but to me, it means people are dying. Ah, oh well. Too bad I wasn't there. Maybe I could have helped somehow. Boy, it didn't take long, did it? Oh, and poor Amelia. Of course, it was like twice as fast as it normally was. Amelia Earhart. She actually vanished in 1937, and would you believe that some joker actually came out with a book called I Am Amelia Earhart, and it's on the bestseller list because some radio personality hack mentioned it and managed to like give it a plug. Just like Harrison Bergeron, the movie based on the Kurt Vonnegut short story. Anyway. Oh, Gone with the Wind. Obviously, in a newsreel history of the 20th century, a movie is capable of making history, just like Birth of a Nation. And that's right. What Birth of a Nation was to the Ku Klux Klan, Gone with the Wind is to the Confederate cause. So we're sort of bracketing racial prejudice here in the 28 or 18 or whatever, however many minutes we've been running here. I guess we've been going 26 minutes. Let's see. Yeah, 28 minutes. That's right. Because I left some time at the beginning, right? I mean, this is tough. You know, this is harder than it looks. Just keeping up this stream of constant patter. Maybe you'd wish I'd shut up. Very well. Oh, I can't stay quiet that long. Let's see. What do we have here? Well, it's pretty good here. Yeah, we got parades and people marching in line. Oh, the nation's first peacetime draft. We have nothing to fear but fear of being drafted. Blind, unreasoning fear. Fear that we'll get a low draft number. Geez, you know, I guess I don't get to talk much to people, and this is my outlet, right? Of course, by the time you see this, my circumstances might have changed utterly. The Day of Infamy, 1941. Maybe we can actually get FDR saying, this is a day that will live in infamy.
In infamy.
Here, let's run that again here. Yesterday, December 7th,
1941, a date which will live.
The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. No matter how long it may take us to overcome this premeditated invasion, the American people in their righteous might will win through
hey, let's run that backwards. Okay, we're going to run it by you.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. No matter how long it may take us to overcome this premeditated invasion, the American people in their righteous might will win through to absolute victory. The attack at Pearl Harbor united the American people.
Great, we should have another attack at Pearl Harbor, you know? I mean, talk about uniting the American people and all this. What's going on here? This isn't going fast enough to suit me, you know? Well, it's Rosie the Riveter, and, that's right, put the kids in a little pen, and, we'll spend all day making bombs for the menfolk, and, yes. I'm in a tank turret. Yeah, it's Michael Dukakis. No, wait, what am I saying? Here we go. Well, I'm standing before this wire gate because I'm actually blonde and very pretty. The Japanese American in the internment camps. Well, talk about the United States becoming more like Russia and vice versa. Well, here's your first example. I guess democratic innovations just go plumb downhill when that big war comes, right? I mean, once them bombs start dropping, that's all she wrote, brother. Well, I don't know. Blaming the victim, I mean, it's just so common. And of course, many Japanese fought very bravely in World War II, and it's not right that the second and third generation Japanese should have been put in concentration camps where the Germans and the Italians escaped unscathed. You should have thrown them all in camps, damn it. Here we go. Inflation. A shoe shine, once 5 cents, now 10 cents. An apple, once 5 cents, now 12 cents. A piece of fish, once 18 cents, now 24 cents. Bonami cleanser, once 7 cents, now 18 cents. Prices were skyrocketing, and as your Secretary of the OPA, I would like to inform you that this market basket, which in 1940 cost 38 cents, now costs $18.92. And there's not right, and there's something that's got to be done about it. Therefore, we will institute rationing of gasoline, tires, meat, sugar, bread, and other items. Well, here we go. President Roosevelt reviewing the troops and various tedious naval footage and, you know, people climbing down ropes and pontoons and brave soldiers going to their certain doom and yeah, the sort of same footage that you see about 15 times if you watch the A&E channel, which seems to devote much of its time to World War II as though 50 years were not enough to eradicate it from our national consciousness. Man, them antique soldiers in World War II must have had some tough luck. You know, the last World War I veterans probably are, you know, still around, but they're not long for this world. So World War II is going to be the big it's going to be what World War I is now in about 50 years. The last World War II veteran died at the age of 115, and that'll only be about 40 years from now. So keep that in mind as you watch this antique World War II footage, that in 40 years it will have been nearly 100 years ago that World War II was fought. Oh man, President Roosevelt dead. What a bummer. And President Harry Truman in his place, the haberdasher, or at least he wears nice looking hats. I mean, it's good to have a president who looks good, right? Well, he's not wearing his hat now because this is a solemn swearing-in ceremony. But watch, inevitably, there will be a picture of President Truman with a hat. There always is. You see, Truman was like the big hat guy, right? Eisenhower had the Eisenhower jacket, and John F. Kennedy got rid of that crap, and he didn't wear hats, and he didn't wear those button-down pea jacket crap things. And see, look, see, there's JFK, and he's bareheaded. Ooh, the bomb. Love that bomb footage. You know, bomb footage is at a premium these days. Here we go. Still no picture of President Truman with his hat, but wait around, sure enough, you'll see him wearing a hat, because, you know, folks in them days thought that you had to keep a lid on things in order to keep them from bubbling over, so to speak. Oh, here we go. Emperor Hirohito appears before his people to say, "We have surrendered. G.I. Joe comes home." See, there's Kennedy off in the corner, and he's not wearing his hat. Well, now that all the soldiers are coming home, what about housing? What about unemployment? What about rationing? What about inflation? What are we going to do? Well, I don't know. The GI Bill, that's right. Make them all go to college. That'll keep them out of our hair. Kids, stay in school, because we don't want you around here. Of course, the average 22-year-old veteran of World War II is probably far more mature and far more aged in his outlook than the average 30 or 40-year-old who hadn't gone to war. Let's see. Yep, when Johnny comes marching home, or when Johnny Gobb comes sailing home, as the case may be. Building starts. Heavy appliances. Oh man, Truman looks pretty damn bad there. He's not getting enough iodine in his diet or something, or whatever it is that makes you have bags under your eyes. Oh, the kidneys, yeah. The kidneys and the liver, I mean, it's a sign that something's not right there. But, you know, Truman actually lived to be a pretty hale and hearty old age, whereas Roosevelt was totally drained. Whoa, from 59 cents to 74 cents a pound. 79 cents a pound? Oh, here we go. The inevitable Frank Sinatra footage. Of course, soldiers hated Frank Sinatra. What did he do to fight the World War? Nothing. But, of course, that was a criteria for them. Well, what did you do during the war, huh? Well, I had a bad ear. I had a bum knee. Yeah, you look like a bum. Oh, great, look at this. Standing next to a goddamn sculpture of himself. Is this the epitome of ego or what? Even back in 46, the guy was a shameless prat. What can you say about a man who would actually pose smiling next to a plaster bust of his own countenance? Oh, the Iron Curtain. Today, my name is Winston Churchill, and I am a rhetorician. Okay, let's see if we get the Iron Curtain. Yep.
Meow. My name is Winston Churchill.
Soviet Russia denies war. What they deny is the fruits of war and the indefinite expansion of their power and doctrines. An iron curtain has descended across the continent. Behind that line lie all the capitals of the ancient states of Central and Eastern Europe. Warsaw, Berlin, Prague, Vienna, Budapest, Belgrade, Bucharest, and Sofia. All these famous cities and the populations around them lie in what I must call the Soviet sphere.
Well, we got to do something about that. Throw money at the problem. That'll do it. Why is it that when you throw money at the problem during wartime, it's good, but when you throw money at social problems which affect the lives of ordinary people, it's bad? I guess it's money wasted to give those people food and shelter, but to give soldiers armaments and to enable them to kill lots and lots of folks, well, that's good. I mean, the more of the enemy you can kill, the less you have to worry about domestic dissent at home, because it sort of sets an example, you know. It sort of creates a trend here. And let's see, well, we're getting along here. Moving right along, Alger Hiss faces his accuser. With a name like Alger Hiss, I mean, you would think right off the bat that he wouldn't have much of a chance in court, If his name had been something like, I don't know, Alger Innocent or something like that. Or even, I don't know, Stinky or something. So, Stinky or Toodles or something. But no, Alger Hiss, I mean, that's a pretty deadly combo when it comes to trying to prove yourself in court. Well, yeah, good-looking young man, yes. Truman, let's see if we can find a hat here. Where's his hat? Oh, come on. He's a haberdasher, right? Why doesn't he have a hat on? What's wrong with him? Where's his hat? I want to see the hat. Oh, there's Dewey. That smug little man on the wedding cake is Alice Longworth Roosevelt, or Alice Roosevelt Longworth's called him. That's right. Give him hell, Harry. Where's his hat, damn it? Put your hat on. Come on, mister. We want to see a hat. Grandma Moses. Well, well, well. Surprise, surprise, surprise. Well, 1949, we just sort of stuck her in there. I mean, we didn't really have anything to say about 1949, so that we could show by way of a picture. Where's your hat, Harry? Harry, where's your hat? Damn it, I want the hat. The beginning of the superhighways, I suppose, is what they're getting at here. I thought that began under Eisenhower. Oh, well, here we go. Truman praises MacArthur. Mano Manischewitz. Oh, why don't they say anything about the beginning of the Korean War? And then the Korean War began. More men jumping off of pontoons we just happen to have footage of. Today, in Korea, 25 years before they inflicted the Hyundai on us, actually 35 years, yeah, see, there's the thing. We wasted thousands of American lives, like 45,000 Americans died in Korea, and what did we get out of it? The Hyundai, And what's their biggest crop there? Cabbage, valuable cabbage, right? It's like Vietnam, rice, valuable rice. We're fighting over fucking rice and cabbage. It's just unbelievable. Oh, maybe there's oil. Well, in that case, it's okay, Oh, here we go, microchips, okay. That's good. Automation. Better and more effective killing machines, like, automatic transmission. Ooh, man, we're getting fancy now. Now, General MacArthur. Hooray for General MacArthur! See, there's parrots that remember General MacArthur. There's not very many people nowadays, my age anyway. Who in their late 30s remembers General MacArthur? Well, he died long before you were even born, but in any event, maybe not that long ago. I'm just babbling unconscionably. I hope you're enjoying this incredibly valuable footage. Let's see if I can get a little better exposure here. Watch, it's gonna fade out. Old soldiers never die, they just fade away. Yuck, 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 like me, just now. Okay, old soldiers never die, they just get incredibly negative. Here we go, what's this? Eisenhower versus Stevenson. Whoa, what a headline. Korea. Democratic war with a Republican solution. Old bald head here. Well, if Stevenson had gotten a good toupee, I mean, that would have made all the difference in the world. But of course, Eisenhower was kind of a baldy too, so it didn't really matter now, did it? Eisenhower elected. Geez, as if the result were in doubt whatsoever. Stevenson, did he even have a wife, or was he divorced, or what? The hydrogen bomb. Cool, man. We get to see some more footage of stuff blowing up. That's really cool. I dig that the most, Daddy-O. I think we only got 11 more minutes, but I got a special surprise for you. Ooh, just wait till you see this one. You're going to actually, we only have about 5 more minutes if I remember right. If I remember how this thing works. Since I'm running it at twice the speed and I haven't really been taking that many. Look at that. Shooey. Man, oh man, Manischewitz, what a wine. Salk announces polio vaccine. I gotta look at this tape thing and see just how far up this goes here. Let's see. From 1900 to 1967. Why did they stop at 67? They should have stopped at 73. I guess, that's right. They didn't have newsreels after 1967. Oh, man. This is Pittsburgh, see? Dr. Jonas Salk. Some say the Salk vaccine might have had something to do with the eventual spread of AIDS. Here's Pat Buchanan. No, I'm sorry. It's Joe McCarthy. Not, well, let's see. Let's get a little bit of a viewpoint here. There we go. I do not believe your cruelty, until this time, Senator.
I like to think I'm a gentleman, but your forgiveness
Will have to come from a source other than myself. Hey, what's all the fuss about, old man? Okay, here we go.
McCarthy accused a young Welsh aide of communist ties. Pained and outraged, Mr. Welsh replied,
Little did I dream you could be so reckless and so cruel as to do an injury to that lad. If it were in my power to forgive you for your reckless cruelty, I would do so. I like to think I'm a gentleman, but your forgiveness will have to come from someone other than me.
Mr. Chairman, now, I just give this man's record.
Senator, may we not drop this? Have you no sense of decency, sir? At long last, have you left no sense of decency?
You brought him down, did you not, to act as your assistant?
Mr. McCarthy, if there is a God in heaven, it will do neither you nor your cause any good. I will not discuss it further. You, Mr. Chairman, may, if you will, call the next witness.
Wow. Pretty damn impressive, huh? What do you think? Have you no sense of and we're going to play it back, of course, in double time.
Have you no sense of decency? At long last, sir, have you no sense of decency? If it were in my power to forgive you, I would. But since I am a gentleman, I must say that I like to think of myself as a gentleman, but I cannot forgive you for your reckless cruelty. Stop, stop, stop. Oh, I can't get it to stop.
Okay.
Right.
Here we go.
After Crystal Marshall found out she was pregnant, she resolved to tell her husband.
That's telling him there. Yes, sir. Well, now Edmund Murrow. This is even better, you know. We'll have to give it a little focus here. This is historic footage.
him by CBS News correspondent Edward R. Murrow.
Now, Mr. Murrow said on this program, and I quote, he said, the actions of the junior senator from Wisconsin have given considerable comfort to the enemy. That is the language of our statute of treason, rather strong language. If I am giving comfort to our enemies, I ought not to be in the Senate. If, on the other hand, Mr. Murrow is giving comfort to our enemies, he ought not to be brought into the homes of millions of Americans by the Columbia Broadcasting System.
In connection with that, I would like to repeat one thing that I said. I said when the record is finally written, as it will be one day, it will answer the question, who has helped the communist cause and who has served his country better, Senator McCarthy or I? I would like to be remembered, if at all, by the answer to that one question.
Okay, that was a whole lot of nothing. I'm sorry, we're going to have to buzz through this because time is short. Okay, well, okay. You know, as recently as 1956, I mean, it was a system of apartheid that's, you know, and it took 7 long years for it to begin to crumble. 7 years. And prior to that, of course, you had Brown versus Topeka Board of Education in 1954. So it's not as though things were entirely static prior to that, but just what a wonderful country. Within living memory, there was a time when black people had to drink from separate drinking fountains. Now, of course, it's only non-celebrities who must do so. Let's see now. But you know, what it all boils down to is this segregation. It all took place where there was no real money. I mean, where most of the people just didn't have much money. And, you know, they wanted to hang on to their little caste system because it's basically all they had, because they were just too plumb stupid to really do anything for themselves otherwise, except keeping the other guy down, as Randy Newman so eloquently put it. But I will not repeat his eloquent words because, well, it is a very sensitive climate hereabouts, and my use of such words would be misinterpreted. In any event, yes, Marilyn Monroe, U.S. falters in the space race. See, what they don't talk about, you know, when they discuss the Challenger debacle is it wasn't the first time one of our rockets blew up. As a matter of fact, it was probably the third or fourth time. And look at that, all that rocket just to launch one little piece of metal junk. Woo! Will you look at that? Well, at least there was no guy on that platform. Elvis in the Army. Here we go. This is cool. You know, like this is an important event. And just because we happen to have it on newsreel, yes. This actually belongs in the trivia section, doesn't it? I think that there's like an awful, I think the hard news would seem to be at a premium here. And the soft news is sort of taking over. Oh well, what is American culture after all but a mere trivium omnium of every conceivable bit of noisome nonsense that has accumulated as the detritus of history. Abraham Lincoln, in his Gettysburg Address, said, you know, it's what's up front that counts. You can fool all the people all the time, but Carl Sandburg is a pretty stand-up guy. Is that Carl Sandburg? What the hell is he doing there? Or is that Robert Frost? Oh well. Were they dedicating the Lincoln Memorial? Is this like the upshot of this? Pictures of a statue, Carl Sandburg, the Congress, people acting solemn. Alright, whatever. I hear there's candy inside of Lincoln's head. I got that from a Ren and Stimpy show. The U2. Well, and to think that 25 years later a bad Irish band with a ranting vocalist would emerge from this debacle. I like that word, debacle. I'm not even sure I'm pronouncing it right, but let's try it again. Debacle. Debacle. Let's see. I have all sorts of other names for this that I could be calling it. Let's see. I don't have any of them ready right now. But in any event, I think the official title of this will be Mockumentary, starring, of course, the wrong hero. We could call it The Twisted Ladder, or Super Unleaded, or Gentlemen Start Your Enigmas, or Romantic Love, Prescription Medications, and the One True Religion, or Mayhem, or Obese Pawn, or, oh, I don't know, The Lexicon of Doomsday, perhaps, or Use of Deadly Force Justified. There's a nice one. Yes, I like to collect these little phrases, as you might have noticed. Let's see. We could call it Some Restrictions May Apply, or Slick Talking Baloney Merchant, or Drunks Along the Potomac, or The Cynic's Handbook, or A Matter of Opinion. But no, I think mockumentary is about as good a term as any for this. And, you know, we're winding down the first hour of this mockumentary, and I want you to know that in the second hour we will be continuing in this endeavor. And so you needn't fear that I will be sort of fizzling out on this because there's more to come. And we're just about on part 2 of The Wrong Heroes Mockumentary. And here we go, Kennedy in Berlin. And wow, pretty damn depressing. Oh, wait a minute. I am a jelly donut. This is where he says, I am a jelly donut. Oh, listen to him cheer.
All free men, wherever they may live, are citizens of Berlin. And therefore, as a free man, I take pride in the word, Ich bin ein Berliner.
1 million beleaguered West Berliners gave John F. Kennedy a delirious welcome.
Yes, well, they might. Here we go. The imperial power of the world's free leader is actually sticking up for him. And most people weren't willing to do that because, you know, the Germans. I mean, who cares about Germans, right? I mean, talk about your average German. Oh, here we go. I have a dream. Gotta get this in. This is sort of like the 20th century's greatest hits.
Rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal.
August 28, 1963.
This sweltering somewhat of the Negro's legitimate discontent will not pass until there is an invigorating autumn of freedom and equality.
Dr. King's speech highlights the great civil rights march on Washington, D.C. But it is only after the assassination of John Kennedy that President Lyndon Johnson can push civil rights legislation through Congress, making discrimination against blacks in public places.
Remember, that was only 32 years ago. Oh, the Kennedy assassination. I think we can sort of run through this. I mean, it's kind of depressing. Poor guy. Why does he have to get it? Why doesn't someone else, like, oh no, I can't watch. Please, no. Don't show this to us. I don't need to see this again. My God. My God, what have they done? Up there. Oof. Talk about a bad day, huh? The whole weekend was shot. What can I say? You know, I mean, I was all set to go to the amusement park, and then someone had to go and shoot the president. And we get to see pictures of his grieving widow. What a bummer. Well, okay. Come on. We've had enough of this now. I know it was a big significant event, and okay, yeah. Okay, come on already. November. Oh, the Eternal Flame, which only went out once, incidentally. And 46 years old. Cry, yai. And now President Lyndon Johnson. Who would have thought that old ugly face would have gotten into the hot seat there? But sure enough, he sure enough did. What a guy. You know, they lied on this this documentary thing. They said it was only 90 minutes long. It's actually like 100 minutes long. And of course, if you fast forward through it at double speed, it's actually 50 minutes long. So it's just a good thing. It's a good thing, mind you, that I didn't try to do both of them because I just wouldn't have had the time. We're up to 1967, and we're already running, 64, and we're running like 10 minutes over here. This is just too much. Well, here we go. The Gulf of Tonkin. Attention, boys, Tonkin toys are made just for you. Did you notice a certain slackening off in my incredibly vivacious wit as we get closer and closer to the end? That is no accident, for the wrong hero is, in fact, from dwelling so long amongst you earth people, a mortal himself in many of his habits. And so, thereby, he is thereby incapable of sustaining an hour-long rant without becoming somewhat tired. Here we go. It's 1965, like 31 years ago, and we're still marching for civil rights here. I mean, what's the problem? Well, just like, declared by fiat already. But no, 31 years later, and we're still fighting for this. The Confederate flag still flies over South Carolina. And, these people, they just never give up, these Confederates. I mean, boy, do they hold a grudge. I mean, come on already, guys. Give it up. Give it up. Give it up. Give it up now. I mean, by the year 2040, I guess you Confederates are going to be in the minority, and then what, huh? What are you going to do then, huh? Well, there we go. I'm not so sure I should be showing this part because it sort of identifies this thing. Hey, wait a minute. It said up to 1967, and it only went to 1965. What a rook. Okay, now we're going to play history backwards. Okay, here we go. We're marching out of Selma. President Johnson is rescinding his civil rights platform. We gotta go faster than this, though. Can we like do double fast backwards? I don't know. I don't think so. And we're marching out of Selma. Marching against civil rights. Retreating from Vietnam. Sucking bombs and napalm out of the aircraft carriers going backwards. Rescinding the Civil Rights Bill of 1964. Withdrawing from the shaking the hands of young black children. Taking back everything he had to say to Congress about civil rights. A bullet sucked out of President Kennedy's head by a rifle wielded by Lee Harvey Oswald, who then retreats from the third floor of the Texas Book Depository. The body resurrected and taken out of its grave and gets back in the motorcade, which goes backwards all the way back to wherever it is it came from. Like, you know, if they had like not posted the parade route, maybe, you know, things might have been a little different. We're going to spit that food right back at the lunch counter. I take back everything I said about civil rights. Everybody go home. Walk backwards, back to where you came from. Everybody withdraw your applause. I am not a Berliner. I am not a jelly donut. Free men everywhere will say, I am not a Berliner. Back to the spaceship platform here. We circle the Earth backwards and back to the platform. Back to the platform. All that smoke gets sucked in there. And what have we here? Oh, aircraft carriers. Cuban Missile Crisis. No crisis. Erase the ink from those newspapers. There's no crisis. And geez, this is tough. You know, this is harder than you think to think backwards like this. Of course, if you're the wrong hero, thinking backwards comes natural to you. Yeah. Kennedy loses. Nixon becomes vice president again. A fat Soviet leader withdraws from the U-2 incident and backs down from Eisenhower. And Eisenhower says, we're getting rid of the U-2 and they're going to be Gary Powers is going to come right back here. The Lincoln Monument is disassembled. Carl Sandburg talks backwards. There we go. Okay. And Elvis comes back from the army backwards and goes back to playing his guitar backwards, and this spaceship that was supposed to have been launched sucks itself back onto the platform, and all the smoke gets sucked back up into the rear entry of the... Oh, this is baffling. What do you think? You think you got enough here? We've already ran through all this. Well, okay. A challenge to school integration. Marilyn Monroe divorces Arthur Miller again. And Arthur Miller unwrites Death of a Salesman. And Marilyn Monroe takes the dye out of her blonde hair and becomes Norma Jean. And Martin Luther King talks backwards. And everybody files out of the auditorium backwards. And this backward stuff. Okay, Edward Murrow. Let's see. We already ran through some of this stuff, right? So let's stop. We only got about 8 more minutes here, and let's Here we go. Wow. It's John Smith. No, it's Fabio. And he's going to become alive in a second. Just like the myth of Pygmalion. How do you like that? Hi, I'm Fabio. I'm kind of getting on in years, but I'm not so old as I can't be a commercial shill for this butter-type product, which is basically soy protein and water. All right, we've had enough of that. The beloved Energizer Bunny, probably more famous than most of the people on this newsreel. What do we got here? Somebody died. Oh, Roosevelt. Roosevelt's body is carried backwards by horse and train and is reanimated, and people in World War II are dragged off of beaches, put on pontoon boats, and then back onto convoys, back to battleships which sail backwards back to the United States, while gigantic cannons suck the gigantic cannonballs back into their guns, and everything is taken off of rationing, including gasoline and bread and milk and eggs, and the meat is taken back to the butcher's shop and reassembled back into living animals, and the Japanese are taken away from their concentration camps and put on trains that run backwards back to their homes. And that guy with the beard didn't look very Japanese to me. I thought Oriental people had trouble growing long beards like that. Oh well, I guess once again. And all the women go back from working in the factories and go back to tending their homes, and they stop doing their calisthenics, and Roosevelt announces that, as a matter of fact, the Japanese have been kind enough to reassemble the planes that were destroyed at Pearl Harbor and suck the bombs back into their bomb bays, and so therefore we were declaring peace on Japan, and it is a date which will live in infamy. And let's see, what we got here? Yes, everybody's undrafted and discharged from the Army, and let's see, we got to speed this up a little. Stop. Okay, and we'll rewind just a little more, going back in time, back in history. We'll skip the whole Depression. We'll run the Depression backwards here. We'll steal electricity from farmers. We'll unbuild the Hoover Dam. We'll repeal the repeal of Prohibition, and we'll take Social Security away from all the retired people, and we'll get rid of all the alphabet agencies, and we'll not try to pack the Supreme Court, and so forth. And so this brings us back to President Coolidge, who decides, come on, to not. Oh yeah, we took the Roaring Twenties backwards too. We poured the bathtub gin back into the bathtubs. We took it out of the bathtubs and reassembled it back into its component parts. We unsigned the Versailles Treaty. We decided to suck all of the bullets from World War II back into the guns of the Johnny Doughboys, and we, man, I'll tell you, that's right, we decided not to vote Prohibition in. We rescinded women's suffrage, and basically, we just did everything backwards, right? I mean, this is the whole gist of this, right? And we're getting into the crummy footage now, the stuff, see, like that, and let's see. D.W. Griffith decides not to make Birth of a Nation. Henry Ford decides not to make automobiles. Woodrow Wilson decides not to come up with his 12 points, which Clemenceau commented acidly. God Almighty himself only had 10. All the people who were killed in World War I rise from their graves, rush backwards to the battlefield, take off their uniforms, rush backward back to where they came from. Germany decides not to declare war on the Allied forces. Pancho Villa decides to flee from his engagement with the United States troops on the border of the United States and Mexico. And as I said, D.W. Griffith decides not to make Birth of a Nation and Intolerance. And coming up, I guess we'll have Henry Ford decides to take the cars and disassemble them back into their component parts, and take the iron ore and put it back in the ground where it came from, as well as the coal and the coke, and ship it back to Pittsburgh and the Mesabi Range in Minnesota. And the Wright brothers decide not to invent heavier than air flight, and so they fly backwards back into Kitty Hawk, and they take all the balsa wood they used to construct the damn plane and all the bicycle parts, and they just, you know, go back to being bicycle repairmen. And Teddy Roosevelt, and this is getting a little remote, he decides not to be a Rough Rider, and the guy who shot McKinley sucks the bullet out of McKinley, and I guess that's the 20th century backwards. And anyway, this has been The Wrong Hero, and it has been my pleasure to present this mockumentary for your viewing and listening pleasure. However, I will have to take a break from these proceedings because it is now time for me to go and do the grocery shopping, among other things. So, thank you very much. I'm The Wrong Hero. We'll be back with more in just a second. You are tuned to Cafe Cabaret. Wrong Hero, I'm back. You didn't think you'd get off that easy, do you? Well, here we go. American nostalgia, the 20th century. From mule teams crossing the Platte River to muddy frontier towns to, well, what have you, ferry boats taking anxious refugees across to Ellis Island. And yeah, it looks like we got some of the same footage here as before. Let's just buzz through this. The Statue of Liberty, yeah, okay. An angel taking off little Eliza, and a production of Uncle Tom's Cabin, and the Beatles, and we're fast forwarding now. Elvis, Frank Sinatra, the Human Cannonball, a midget. Oh wow, look at all that. Boy, those Americans sure are a fun-loving bunch, aren't they? Well, 1926, Amy Semple McPherson, the first televangelist, and perhaps, in many respects, the best. Let's see if we can get this to go right. Here we go. Hi, I'm Amy Semple McPherson. I will be caught up in a scandal in which I disappear with one of my assistants for many days and claim I'm kidnapped. Ah, Rudolph Valentino. Well, what can you say about Rudolph Valentino that hasn't already been said many a time prior to this? I need not add any more commentary to the saga of Rudolph Valentino, except, of course, to note that it was a mass spectacle when the man, in fact, died of somewhat suspicious causes, if the case may be. And here is some rare footage. It's always rare footage, you know. Here is some commonly seen footage. The making of Mount Rushmore. Wow. George Washington must have been sneezing there, huh? Well, finishing up here. You just got to put the last bit of lacquer in George Washington's hair. We use pine tar for that service. Don't sneeze, Lincoln, or that poor man's going to go flying. Well, well, well. Yes, quite an impressive sight, that. And a tourist attraction at that. Now, this is Disney footage, and I'm going to have to alter it in some way. Wow, it's plain crazy. Get it? Plain crazy? Oh, well, well, look at this. And it's Walt Disney, for the first and only time, actually drawing Mickey Mouse. Steamboat Willie, which you can see repeated ad nauseum at Disneyland at a projecting screen. And, of course, all the way to the live-action Mickey. Wow, you think I'm going to get to go to Disneyland and actually meet the real live Mickey Mouse? Well, then my life will not have been in vain and I can die happy. Dance marathons. So eloquently portrayed in the film. They shoot horses, don't they? Yowza, yowza, yowza. Ladies and gentlemen, step right up and see the, let's see, how does that go? The last line of They Shoot Horses. Oh well, it's too late for that. Well, we can go into George Gershon here. Dun 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 dun. Yes, weren't those 1920s quaint, huh? Well, anyway, let's see. I think it's in the L section of the book of movie quotes here. But of course, by the time I get to it, there we go. Last lines. Yowzer, yowzer, yowzer. Here they are again, those wonderful, wonderful kids, still struggling, still hoping as the clock of fate ticks away. The dance of destiny continues. The marathon goes on and on. How long can they last? Let's hear it. Come on, let's hear it. Let's hear it. Well, it looks like we have a little dance marathon here of our own, although it's the swanky set and not the proto-depression set who's doing the hoofing. Wow, look at that. So incredibly stylized. Would you believe? Oh, is it still on negative? I guess it is. Okay, here. Now we're back. All right. Buster Crabbe becomes Flash Gordon, an incredibly significant event. Well, yeah, famous swimming star a la Johnny Weissmuller, although this time it's Buster Crabbe, and he goes into the movies, and he's not really required to do much in the way of actual acting. Basically, it's beefcake, isn't it? Wow, what a hunk. You know, he looks like rough trade to me. Well, I would hate to say, oh, here we go, and now some footage, incredibly rare, of course, of Flash Gordon. The Ziegfeld Follies. And, of course, Follies is a good way to describe much of what has gone on in American popular culture for the past 50 years or so. Let's see, what exactly is the time period that we're talking about here? 1920 to 1965, except, you know, they're kind of fudging it here because, unless I put them in the wrong boxes. No. Okay. So we can safely expect that it'll be like maybe 3 years before 1965 that we end. Billy Sunday. We're going to hit a home run for Jesus. Let's see if we can get some actual footage of the great man.
Adore the captain of Washington and spread her bright pinions of peace and prosperity over our land from sea to sea and from the Gulf to the Great Lakes. And in the province of God, I'm going to live long enough to see America so cry, you'd have to prime a man before he can spit. And I'll fight the saloon from Hawaii to Hoboken. And I'll kick it as long as I've got a foot. And I'll fight it and punch it as long as I have a fist. I'll bunt it as long as I have a head. I'll bite it as long as I have a tooth. And when I'm old and fistless and footless and toothless, I'll gum it till I go home to glory and it goes home to perdition.
Well, that was pretty impressive, wasn't it? Oh, and look, we get Amelia Earhart again. You know? What is this anyway? You would think that Amelia Earhart actually did something that was incredibly historic. But no, just by virtue of her gender and the fact that she happened to be a skilled pilot, and I believe the first to fly around the world, she gets all the credit and glory, and even gets a, as I mentioned before, best-selling novel in which she is the purported narrator. And wow, she's a pretty nice piece of fluff for 1932. John D. Rockefeller giving out dimes in order to improve his PR, playing golf, which of course makes him, you know, just your average everyday Joe. And look at that old scoundrel. Look at that buzzard as he pontificates shamelessly with his pith helmet and his stingy dime tipping ways. And just look at him. Isn't that something? Well, you know, this examination of America's follies and foibles is very valuable insofar. Oh, here's Eleanor Roosevelt. Get a load of this.
And forget all the troubles that weigh us down, and simply sing is a grand thing to do.
In December 1932, with her husband's first inauguration.
Well, okay, that's enough for Eleanor Roosevelt. You can see she had this high-pitched voice. And simply sing. Adlai Stevenson is a great man. What's that? Well, nevertheless. Yes, indeed. Good old Eleanor. And now here we got, oh, stunts of the time. People sitting on top of flagpoles, insane dance marathons. Goodbye, honey. I'm off to work. Sitting on top of a flagpole for 18 hours at a stretch, coming down only to relieve myself. It's why it must be Flagpole Kelly or whatever the hell his name is. The diving horse, you know, they had diving mules too, until the ASPCA stepped in and said it was cruel to the animals, to say nothing of how little it elevated the audience. Swing music. Swing music comes into vogue in 1933, and there's still some people out there who will swear by swing music as being the best American music. Mostly alcoholic World War II veterans in their gigantic land yachts cruising along at 45 miles an hour in the passing lane, taking gulps from a bottle of whiskey in between listening to swing music and listening to Rush Limbaugh. Yep, this is the origin. This is where it all started. And now it's Kate Smith, America's sweetheart, and a rather hefty one at that. Let's see if we can get some voice action here. We got to hear the immortal one speak. All right, that's enough of that. Sort of sounds like Alanis Morissette strained through a Victrola. Okay, here we go. Yep, she had a heart as big as all outdoors. And for that matter, she had a shadow that could probably cast Rhode Island and Massachusetts in perpetual darkness. However, enough with these overweight jokes. After all, it's not considered very sensitive in this day and age to jest about a person's corpulence. Of course, it's perfectly acceptable to jest about their anorectic thinness, which is rather odd, I suppose, because it's okay to make fun of somebody who has a desirable trait. Never have been able to figure that out. Why, it's Fred Astaire, who I think recently passed on, more's the pity. But here he is in the prime, doing those typical 30s gestures, leaning his face at you with his top hat crooked at a jaunty angle. Yes, sir. Look at him. Why, he's quite a fella. And, oh, 6-day bike races. Now, here's something I wasn't heretofore aware of, but here we go. It's Jimmy Durante, the beloved entertainer, who I recall from the days of my earliest childhood, back when he was still pushing that I got a banana up my nose line of his, and, of course, his immortal heckle line, everybody wants to get in on the act. And look at these enthusiastic people. What's this? A convict at a eating marathon? Well, I don't know. This is rather odd. I guess they carbo-loaded even back in 1933. Oh no, one of those interminable dance crazes which are totally incomprehensible to us, what with our own particular nightclub raves and acid rock and, well, acid house music and what have you, slam dancing. Boy, what would they say about slam dancing? Of course, you know, there was a style of dancing known as Apache dancing, which was considered every bit as outrageous in the 1920s when it was introduced in Paris, France, as our own slam dancing might be considered to the elders nowadays. Oh, Clark Gable. Well, well, he merits a whole chapter all his own, undoubtedly. 2 minutes of fame. Here sped up to, of course, 1 whole minute of fame. There he is. As his career progresses, his mustache seems to have gotten even thicker and blacker, and I guess it sort of symbolizes his stint in the armed forces. There we go. Yes, sir. Oh, now here he is in his senectitude, and about 2 seconds of that is considered enough. Here we go. Proper bathing attire. Well, isn't this wonderful? People getting tattooed. What is this anyway? Oh, maybe it's, oh, I see. They're passing on their, they're giving him the seal of approval. Well, that's considered a little too skinty, but we'll let it pass this time. Does anybody actually get turned down? No, yeah, of course. She's just taking it a little too far, isn't she? The Civilian Conservation Corps, as symbolized by dancing goyles. Yep, there we go. Those young fellas, they're marching in peacetime, marching and doing their bit for America. Yep, you know, we should bring back to those days. Here we go, chopping trees in the dead of winter, having a little tug-of-war going here, making tunnels through the snow. Wonderful. The Gas House Gang. Could this have something to do with Gas House McGinty?
Whenever I get that man out.
Joan Dizzy Dean, star pitcher for the St. Louis Cardinals. The famous Gas House.
Oh, so that's what that refers to. Guess you have to be a baseball buff. Well, let's see if we can just like, I don't know, should we like just zip through this? Well, by the time I'm finished deciding whether or not we should do so, I would well imagine. Oh, and here they are with the Little Women. Look at as they worshipfully interrupt their men at their pursuits. And, well, like the Harlem Globetrotters of baseball. Huey Long, my pal. Maybe we can get him to say, let's put them.
In 1935, when President Roosevelt walked country fashion.
The Democratic Party and the Republican Party were just like the old patent medicine drug. only difference that I have found between the Democratic leadership and the Republican leadership was that one of them was skinny from the ankle up and the other from the ear down when I got to Congress.
Well, point well taken, Huey. And one would well remember. Howard Hughes, before he became a recluse and before his disastrous spruce goose. Maybe we would actually get to see a picture of this spruce goose. I guess he was one of the first guys to fly around the world, too. Solo at that. Well, well. Hi, I'm Howard Hughes. Before I went totally off the deep end, my fingernails are trimmed and my socks are incredibly clean. I don't have a bunch of Mormon bodyguards taking care of me 24 hours a day. And in fact, I'm feeling pretty good about myself. I haven't bought a major movie studio yet. Major Beau's Amateur Hour. This is what passed for entertainment back in the 1930s. You get a bunch of people who do various freakish things in front of the microphone. See, there were no real pictures back then. So, oh, here we go. A toothless old man doing his specialty. Here's a one-man band. Well, sort of reminds me of the Gong Show of the late 70s. Say, what about this, huh? What do you suppose he's doing? Well, it sure looks interesting. The roller derby, as so poignantly captured in the Raquel Welch vehicle, Kansas City Bomber, which was the first French kiss I actually saw on screen as an impressionable lad. And of course, this was, of course, the sexual awakening of the wrong hero. And but here we see the ancestor of such spectacles. And now Benny Goodman riding that swing wave. Look at those people dance. You know, it must be tribal. They know this song since before the day they were born. It's built in the blood. No matter who you are, where you come from. Look at him play that licorice stick. Yowza, 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 as they were so fond of saying in the 1930s. Yep, the great man himself, Benny Goodman. Look at him swing. Wow, look at them cool cats. Wow, that could be a Woodstock babe for all we know. 30 years too soon. Well, okay, here we go, the fan dancers. Oh boy, looks like there's no end of dance crazes in the 1930s. And I guess these fan dancers, oh, I see, they sort of concealed portions of their bodies with the fans. And Fargo, Scranton. This looks pretty interesting. Whoa, say, looks to me like she's not wearing an awful lot of anything underneath there. Well, soapbox derby. Well, it looks to me like virtually every single suburban 50s activity stems from short-lived crazes in the 1930s, including boxcar racing. Of course, the original intent seems to have already become somewhat corrupted here, since these boxcars, as they're so styled, seem to have motors. The It Girl. Wait a minute, what's going on here? Clara Bow? I thought she was the 20s. Well, who knows? I mean, you know, you got the footage from 1937. So what if it's a little bit out of date? You just squeeze it in there. Well, she surely does have it. Of course, it is probably 20 pounds too much, but nevertheless, well, I don't know, about 20 pounds. She could stand to shave off about 10 or 12. And then she would fit the standards of modern day movie actresses. Oh, gangsters. Again, this seems to be something that was more relevant posted under the heading of 1933. But, well, there's J. Edgar Hoover looking mighty stolid. And he still has all his hair and his own teeth, and he's looking like the G-Man #1. And look at these wretches. Yes, clap the darbies on them, you boys in blue. We'll make an example of these reprobates. This man looks semi-cretinous. Kissing banded buffalo. Well, then I guess that's about the last reason to still be in Buffalo. And what the hell? Man, I don't know what the hell this is about. But, well, Buffalo had to find some way to attract attention to itself, I suppose, besides blizzards in the winter and gigantic mosquitoes in the summer. You know, Buffalo is just about one of the worst climates in east of the Mississippi. Miss America says, no thanks. No thanks to what? Boy, oh boy, look at this. Wow, look at those curvaceous and somewhat plump beauties. Well, standards of human beauty don't really change an awful lot. They got the template down. It's just that it's poured a little thicker than it might ordinarily. I guess when everybody's starving, a chubby girl's good. And when everybody's fat, a skinny girl is considered to be the ne plus ultra fashion. Wow, Groucho and Charlie. Why, this is a meeting of the giants of the American comedic, silent, and talkie cinema. The big man of the silence meets the big man of the talkies. Charlie serves. Oh, and looks like Groucho, as they called him during his reign as the TV star of the 50s, is playing a little trick on the audience here. Oops. A young Texan meets FDR. Oh, well, that would be LBJ. Say, what does the great man have to say? We actually get to hear him say it.
An enthusiastic New Dealer, on April 10, 1937, at the age of 29, he won the first of 6 terms in the U.S. House of Representatives, from which he would eventually go on to a prominent role in the U.S. Senate. April 10, 1937, marked the beginning of his brilliant career.
Yeah, April 10th,
3 weeks later,
1967.
President Roosevelt came to his state and asked to meet the up-and-coming young man. He became like a daddy to me, said the Texas congressman, who 27 years later became himself President of the United States, Lyndon B. Johnson.
Well, Spencer Tracy. I don't know, is that the name of the boat, or are we going to actually get to see Spencer Tracy, the great man himself? Yep, we've got some film footage here. Of course, needless to say, it's rare and seldom seen film footage at that. Well, let's see. We've got 29 minutes left and about 25 minutes to go on the actual film, which will give me some time to... Oh, but wait. We're missing out on what the great man has to say because of my habit of talking through everything. See, this is wonderful. I never get a chance to do this. I'm sitting down, watching television. God forbid I should interrupt the Mickey Mouse cartoon by actually saying something important like the house is on fire. So this is a welcome opportunity to get all this pent-out, smart aleck commentary out of the way. Of course, you're suffering the brunt of it. Maybe you should check the other channels and see if there's anything else good on. But whatever you do, well, you know, otherwise just call up all your friends and say, hey, watch this. This guy's talking and talking. The Roosevelts and the polio victims. Okay, so this sort of puts the lie to the idea that the American public at large, A, didn't know that FDR was afflicted with polio, and B, did not know that he sat in a wheelchair. So here we go, we got it right here. You know, polio was a killer, and mothers used to dread the coming of every summer because, of course, that was the polio season. We saw about an hour ago that the benevolent Dr. Jonas Salk was able to rid mankind of this scourge. The wrong hero himself was diagnosed with polio, wrongly as it turns out. Otherwise, I suppose I would be doing a Dr. Strangelove here, and I wouldn't find very much of humor in this particular segment. But, well, some things never change. Polio is America's #1 killer. Hi, I'm Eleanor Roosevelt, and little Jimmy and little Jamie and little Jackie all have names that begin with the letter J. But most importantly, they are all sufferers of this scourge called polio. Oh boy, the human cannonball. Can't wait. Seems as though this was the subject of a recent, in fact, the end of the season's Simpsons episode. Boy, oh boy. Okay, oh no, he's not getting hit with a cannonball in the stomach. He's being fired out of a cannon. Doesn't Barnum and Bailey have something like that? Except it's Ariana the human arrow. I guess men have to be cannonballs and women have to be arrows. Cool. Well, you know, this guy must be in pretty good shape, huh? Too bad it's like, and here we go. Here's the guy whose stomach is hit with a sledgehammer. And, they're going to fire a cannonball at him. This is cool. Get a load of this, kiddies. Don't try this at home. Is that a real cannonball? Well, it sure looks like it. Okay, here goes. Ooh. You know, if you do that one more time, but see that? That's how I'm going to punish you if you misbehave. So always mind your parents, or you'll end up like this guy, having to make a living getting a cannonball fired at your big fat stomach. Well, you know, that fat actually serves a beneficent purpose in this instance. Wonder where that guy is now. Probably on Star Search. Let's see. All right. Jobless men keep going. We can't take care of our own. Yes, the benevolent American spirit comes out once more. Who's this creep? Probably the head of the Communist Party USA or something, right? If the Red Star is any indication. Well, let's get a little...
Until I find further employment as a garment maker.
I see. I get it. We weren't going on double speed here. That's why everything seems so interminably slow these last few minutes. Well, okay, a talking head. You know, it looks like the newsreels weren't any more advanced, even though they used motion picture film. Oh, goody! A suicide while thousands of New Yorkers watch. Do we actually get to see him hit the ground? Or was it a kinder, gentler era when people averted their gaze? No, I'll bet you in order to get that red-hot scoop, they followed him all the way down. Let's see the tracking shot here. Oh, pretty good. They got 2 cameras on, maybe even 3. Pretty sophisticated use of film editing. Yeah, these guys were no slouches. Oh, now it's nighttime. They don't actually get to see it. Well, that's too bad. Well, we should do this on double speed.
We now return you to Carl Phillips at Grover's Mill.
Ladies and gentlemen, here I am. Wait a minute, something's happening. There's a jet of flame springing from the mirror and a big flood of these blasted men. Lord, they're turning into flames.
Orson Welles had just directed the famous War of the Worlds radio broadcast, the dramatic show that...
Yeah, boy, oh boy, did they ever overreact to that. Yeah, and he had to eat some pretty major crow. And well, you know, telling the Earth that Martians are landing, that's one way of getting your name before the public. Of course, the wrong hero himself is an alien, and so I am basically my own War of the Worlds broadcast. And in fact, it is by virtue of my very alienness that I am permitted to comment in such a smart-ass way on the affairs of you mere earthlings. Here we go. Wrong way, Corrigan. Well, I suppose that another way to get famous is to do something so incredibly stupid that you become the cynosure of thinking men everywhere. Here he is, pretty craggy looking. Hooray! Hooray for Wrong Way, Corrigan. You know, the Spectre, the comic book hero of the 1940s, was named Jim Corrigan in his civilian identity. Oh, we get to see some J. Edgar Hoover footage. This is cool. Hey, where's Clyde Tolson? And where's his, where's the dress? Come on. Wait a minute. Where's Jed? Where's J. Edgar? Oh, wait a minute. Here we go. All right, you rats. Come out of there. We're going to give you to the count of 3. And we're going to come in blasting. Say, oh, here we go. Cool. Wow. Marian Anderson at the Lincoln Memorial. I guess the Lincoln Memorial was built well before 1958 or 9, and yep, here we go. You know, I hate to seem as though I'm insensitive, but I think I'll buzz a little quicker through this because there's not much I can think of to say which is humorous about this particular thing. Whoa, hog callers contest. This I gotta see. Look at them curvaceous beauties. Here we go. The cream of America. Look, it's Ma Kent. Where's Clark Kent and Pa? Well, okay, I think we've had enough of this, don't you think? All right, come on. Here we go. Sort of sounds strangely like the Confederate battle call. Well, just goes to show, the more things change. Galloping Gertie. Oh boy, here's something else I didn't know anything about. Now what could this possibly be in reference to? Oh, is that the bridge it buckles and collapses? Cool. Hope we get to see the footage. Come on, don't, oh, ooh, that must have really hurt. Eleanor Roosevelt and the miners, okay, that's good. Remember the horse he set by day, by night? Friend of the oppressed miners everywhere. For gosh sakes, here comes Mrs. Roosevelt, as the famous New Yorker cartoon so aptly put it. And now it's Babe Ruth demonstrating his technique, not necessarily of with pretty young girls in hotel rooms or gorging on hot dogs and soda until he gets sick. And now another baseball hero, Joe DiMaggio, a singularly unattractive looking man, if you ask me. Oh, and he gets to marry Marilyn Monroe. Well, see, it just goes to show, if you can hit a ball with a bat, you can do anything. Jimmy Stewart joins every, I don't know, Doc. I don't know if I want to shoot the Germans. Are you camping it up with a wooden dummy? All right. Bob Feller. Oh, yeah, okay, the man with the world's fastest pitch. Whoa, get a load of this. He's going faster than a motorcycle policeman. I got you. Whoa, whoa. Man, that's really something. I wonder who thought that brainstorm up. Okay. Our brave black servicemen are every bit as brave as our white servicemen. Not something we would have to point out nowadays. Okay, crazy football. Okay, that's pretty good. Yeah, there's some nice footage here. Empty highways. Oh, that's right. Gas rationing. Whoops. What have I done? All right, we'll try it again. Well, seems as though our boys at the front need gasoline to power their tanks more than motorists at home do. So, for the duration, we're going to stick it out and walk everywhere we go. And the man in the touring car is actually a traitor to his race. And the woman in the touring car is just as bad. Of course, you know, these cars, oh, no gas sold from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Well, how do you like that? So when exactly are you supposed to get gassed up anyway? Recycling to win the war? Well, that's good. I guess it's the birth of the recycling movement. Strangely enough, that garbage truck could have appeared on today's street and not attracted any undue notice. Wow. Again, once again, as my poor old daddy told me, the more things change, son, the more they stay the same. Well, okay, here we go. Got the assembly line going. So, those tin cans help make torpedoes to blast the enemy out of the water. Okay, all-star baseball game, I think not. Let's just run through this, okay? Various gobs and soldiers and flyboys sitting around watching a bunch of guys. Oh, Yankee Doodle Dandy, yes, 3 hours long. I'm Jimmy Cagney. You associate me with villains, but here I play the grand old man of them all in the George M. Cohen story. The girls are marching, okay, great. Again, women get to be every bit as aggressive as men. And here we got a photo montage thing going here. Wow, pretty impressive technology, huh? She does look a little washed out, though. Maybe they should have had Casper the Friendly Ghost. Fix it yourself. Part of the recycling boom. Raw materials are scarce in wartime, so we're going to fix it up, mend it, make do. White House party. Now, how can they be having a party using all those valuable eggs, milk, and frosting and sugar, and while our boys at the front, etc., etc., etc. Oh, yeah, and let's see. Buy war bonds, says James Cagney. He already had his 2 minutes of fame, but here we go again. Say, fella, don't you know that every war bond you buy puts another bullet in the gun of an American?
That extra suit or that extra dress or those honoration shoes. But what's more important is that we can all afford to buy those bonds. Let's all back the attack.
Cagney was a top movie star for nearly 30 years.
No kidding. Like, we really needed to know that? Come on. We know that he's the top film star from 1933 to 1963. Well, let's see. What's this? Another movie star, yes. Well, it looks to me as though movie stars have taken over from the gods on Mount Olympus. Of course, they're, during wartime, of course, I'm not the hero. The real hero are you boys out there, you fighting men, fighting to keep our country strong. Yay! Hooray for us! And now a demonstration What? No gas in America? Well, sad to say. Well, I'm afraid that you're going to have to make do with that old tire of yours. Say, I'm not going to have to deal with no gas. I'm a big man. I'm going to get gas if it takes my last penny. Whoa, speed limit 35 miles an hour. I guess it's their way of saving on gasoline and irritating everybody in the process. Of course, you know, if your fuel pump's leaking, you're going to use more gas at 35 mph than you would at, say, 65. The last furlough. Until what? What a mystery. You know, it seems to me as though we're spending an undue amount of time in the 1930s and the 40s. You know, just call me old-fashioned or something, but I don't know. What's going on here anyway? Oh, no more club cars, no more traveling for pleasure. Bob Hope and Bing Crosby, the great men. All I can say is they were pretty easily entertained back in them days, weren't they? Of course, what do I know? All right. Ooh. Say, this bottle of champagne sure is tough. There we go, finally. LaGuardia reads the funnies. Yet another incredibly historic thing here. Uh-oh. Looks like we're losing out here.
Went on for 2 weeks, until the newsdealers went back to delivering the funnies.
Okay. What is happening? Wow. We finally get, it's like it takes about, 1 hour into this, or no, 25 minutes into this, and we finally get the mention of a literary figure. See, they always leave that stuff until last. I mean, because who cares about some boring old pen jockey anyway, huh? The one-armed baseball player. That's right, you baseball buffs who may have read Philip Roth's The Great American Novel are probably well aware of the one-armed baseball player. Yep, he used to catch the ball in his teeth, or I don't know, something like that. Here we go, the GI Bill, okay. We've already covered this ground, but I suppose it can't do no harm to cover it again. I wonder if this thing actually will be, as promised, 18 minutes long. Well, we'll find out soon enough. Okay. Now, we're sort of rushing through this part because I think we're beginning to run out of time. Anyway, this is The Wrong Hero. You are tuned to Cafe Cabaret. The title of this presentation is Mockumentary. Wow! Dig the gams on them buttes. The bikini, named after the atomic explosion at Bikini Island. Christian Dior. And now that the war is over, America can turn its mind back to things that are really important, like French fashions. Yeah, okay. The Spruce Goose. Oh boy, there it is. Made entirely of wood. The biggest plane in the world. Good golly, look at that thing go. Leo the Lip DeRocher. Yet again, more tedious baseball stars. Well, okay. Well, they sure are efficient. Hostess with the mostest. Okay. Again, more of a trivia omnium here. Americans, war-starved and rationless, now revel in gluttony. And here we go. Ooh, that basketball game was fixed. Fixed, you say? This is a very serious matter. When our gods descend from Mount Olympus and engage in petty commerce, this is newsworthy. Tennis. Still more sports. Well, here we go. Some pretty fine stuff. Yes, sir. Well, I wouldn't miss this for the world. By cracky. Ooh, look at that. Got to see her bum. Oh, Niagara Falls Daredevil. This is well worth slowing down for, isn't it?
1951, having fashioned a new contraption made of inner tubes and netting, Red Hill met the raging rapids once again. Minutes later, the empty...
Oops. Looks like somebody Miscalculated, huh? And his broken and battered body was found days later, miles downstream. Oh, Sophie Tucker says goodbye to showbiz. Here we go. This is a very influential moment.
You'll miss me, honey. Some of these days, you'll be so lonely. You'll miss my hugging.
You'll miss me. Well, I don't know. Actually, I've been trying to get away from the hugging of the likes of you. It looks to me like I have several broken ribs as a consequence of your hugging. So, I hope you're enjoying this cavalcade. Oh, the Harlem Globetrotters. And of course, you know, you're never going to see footage of the Harlem Globetrotters without... And you know, this is 1953. Well, this is like almost 40 years ago. Well, these guys must be pushing 70. Well, I'll supply the soundtrack. Oops, I'm sorry. We're already in, what, hail? Well, it looks to me like this feller's going to be put on a rocket sled to test for G-forces. I mean, you know, call me foolish, but that's just my guess. Yeah, all sorts of scientific gewgaws. And yes, indeed, it's the Indianapolis 500, a car powered by rocket power. Whoa. Whoa, Nelly, was that an explosion? Oh, there we go. Oh, cool. Yep, those G-forces. Don't you think maybe that prematurely ages you? I mean, if gravity-less situations mean that your body doesn't age, then wouldn't G-forces like make you old incredibly fast? Sounds like something out of a Superman comic book. Well, we don't execute our criminals. We just subject them to G-forces and prematurely age them. And we all know that older folks don't have much interest in crime. Well, at least most older folks don't. Okay. The Boston basketball riot. This I gotta see.
1954. The Boston Celtics in white were pulling away to a comfortable lead against the Syracuse Nationals in an NBA semifinal playoff, when in the third period, an incident turned everything upside down. Syracuse star Dolph Shaves drove for the basket and was knocked down hard. Tempers flaring. Boston's Bob Harris and Syracuse's Wally Osterkorn tangled briefly, but it didn't seem to amount to much, and order appeared restored.
But then, get on with it already. Oh, cool. Get a load of this. Look at them cavemen go. Wow, this is great. You know, I'm learning stuff here. And I hope you are too. Wow. Once again, due to a fluke accident, Boston pulls ahead to win. Okay. Oh, great. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Gee, intriguing. You know, a lot of this stuff doesn't seem to me to be a true representation of the trivia trends. I mean, the 30 section was pretty well documented, and the 40 section caught most of the bases, but it looks to me like they're kind of struggling a little bit for, oh, I know why, because newsreels sort of faded away with the advent of television, and therefore, I get it now. Okay, Harry Truman plays the piano. Where's his hat? I've been waiting for a shot of Truman wearing a hat for the entire 2 hours of this presentation, and there's no picture of Truman wearing his hat. In fact, nobody seems to be wearing a hat in any of these newsreels. I guess being on a newsreel is such a solemn occasion that you have to show respect by taking off your hat. Well, okay. When Marlon Brando did accept the Oscar. Say, this is anachronistic. When Marlowe refused to accept it, newsreels had come and gone. So anyway, the pickings look mighty thin on the ground after 1946 or thereabouts. So maybe we should buzz through a lot of this. I don't know. What do you think? Yeah, I think that might be good. Oh, Disneyland. Oh, we can't miss this. Disneyland. Maybe we'll actually get to meet the great Mickey Mouse in person.
America's first monorail was unveiled there 4 years later. Staggering profits led to the subsequent opening of Walt Disney World in Florida in 1971.
The great man himself.
This Disneyopolis cost $400 million.
Say, that's some cash money there. Dizzy Gillespie? Okay, that's great. Well, we're a little pressed for time, so I'm afraid we are not going to be able to get any more than a brief sampling of Mr. Dizzy. Whoops. There we go, Grace Kelly, back before her auto accident, which became the #1 topic of 1982. Was her daughter at the wheel or not? Jimmy Hoffa versus Bobby Kennedy. Well, this is what we've come for. We've paid our money and we want to see our Jimmy Hoffa. Okay. Moving right along. Yes. Okay. No, I didn't do it. Yes, you did. No, I didn't. Yes, I did. No, you didn't. I told you. The Edsel. Today, we have a car named after my son, Edsel Ford, called the Edsel. And boy, oh boy, was that a flop, huh? Well, you know, more and more these newsreels seem to focus less on news items and more on the doings of movie stars and such. Dwight Eisenhower on automation. Today we have a force which is a force for good, much the same way as fire was for the caveman. It's called automation. I, Eisenhower, say this about that. Automation is a good friend. Elvis Presley. Well, once again, we get to see him get all his hair cut off. Cool. Well, now that Samson has been shorn of his locks, I guess he's just Private Presley to you. The hula hoops. Yep. I was 1 year old. I didn't get to stand on top of chimneys either. Not at that impressionable age. Well, look, the beloved German Shepherd's having a whale of a time himself. Richard Nixon and Khrushchev. Okay, we've got to hear this. No? Looks a little too late for that. All right. Say, I'm telling you right now, Khrushchev's wearing a hat. What is it? Americans don't wear hats, but commos do? Say.
I'm wrong. The person who
We
puts
got to
up...
pipe some of these student
Formation in the late
conscience.
1950s.
Yep. Boy, those students, they sure are a barrel of laughs, huh? Well, I'm afraid we're not going to have much more time, so I'm just going to have to skim through this and do it as rapidly as we can. Well, theoretically, now it should be done by now, but maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm mistaken. But looks to me like this is actually a 2-hour presentation, and they said it was only 90 minutes. Okay, Museum of Modern Art, cool. John F. Kennedy. Well, if I'm too young, then the Founding Fathers were too young, and Teddy Roosevelt was too young, and by damn, Jesus Christ himself was too young. Okay, Broadway plays softball. Again, more of a trivium omnium here, combining two of America's favorite activities, show tunes and amateur baseball. Well, can't beat that. The president wants some credit. For what? Making the steelworkers go on strike? Look at that. Early helmet head syndrome. But, you know, to his credit, he never wore one of those ugly hats. Oops. Poor Marilyn. I guess she went to that great big boudoir in the sky. And now, a retrospective of all the great moments. Strolling with Arthur Miller, kissing Joe DiMaggio, and now Beatlemania. The screaming of young girls resembling, most of all, nothing so much as the screaming of young chimpanzees. Okay, John and his famous acerbic wit. Whoa, 1965, Evel Knievel. Wow, I never thought I'd get a chance to see the great man in the prime of his youth, but here he is, Evel Knievel. Wow, look at him. Handsome fella. Oh, and Liberace. Well, now we're getting into the really good stuff. It's a pity we have to go through it so quickly. But, well, you know, time waits for no man, and it won't wait for me. That's for damn sure. Well, dun 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 dun. Okay, that's enough of that. Hey, I'm the wrong hero, and I sure do hope you enjoyed what I called my mockumentary. That's right, all the swinging guys and gals of the 20th century marching before you in a seamless parade. Now, tune in next week when we'll have something else by the wrong hero, as in fact we will virtually every week you can name, hopefully. I don't know what it's called yet because I haven't shot it yet, but you are tuned to Cafe Cabaret, and let me get the logo here on film, because there we go, Cafe Cabaret. And Cafe Cabaret is broadcast for the foreseeable future every Tuesday night and at 9 p.m. on Cambridge Community Television Channel 55. And I certainly hope you enjoyed this as much as I enjoyed finishing it. And this is the wrong hero saying good night, and in the words of the immortal Red Skeleton, I will crush you, Captain America. I'm sorry, God bless. That was the Red Skull I was talking about. So, wrong hero signing off.